What strange thing have you witnessed, experienced that you cannot explain? I was driving home one night, a little under a year ago, and the sky turned completely white for about 8 seconds. Mind you, it was completely clear. No clouds or any kind of moisture in the atmosphere or anything. And it wasn't just one spot either. It was the same, uniform stark white everywhere from every direction up to the horizon. But besides the sky, nothing else had changed. Everything else on the ground was the same exact shade, coloring and shadowing as it had before. It was as if someone had inverted the colors of the sky and only the sky, and it just changed back. It didn't dim or fade. It just switched to black. Still ducked me up and actually made me go see a neurologist. He said everything was fine. No signs of a stroke or aneurysm or anything. Edit. U/00 Dawn explained it perfectly. It was like looking at a night painting that hadn't had the sky painted in yet. Edit 2. The high altitude meteor hypothesis is sounding more and more believable. For at least 15 years now, I will occasionally, maybe 2 or 3 times a month, mistakenly think I see someone I know when walking around. Then, within the next few minutes, I will actually see that person. It's frequent enough that I call it now. I'll be like, is that John? Nope, not John. But I bet I'll see him in the next 10 minutes, and then I do. I don't read into it at all. It's just an odd little quirk in my life. I once went to Panera with some friends. We got our food and sat down at the table. About halfway through the meal, my friend says, "Did any of you guys notice that pole before?" I look next to the table and there is a huge floor to ceiling black pole literally almost touching me. I swear it was not there when we sat down, and at this point I'm freaking out and saying we're in an alternate universe. I get the attention of a woman who works at the Panera and ask her if she's noticed the pole before, and she looks at it genuinely baffled and says she hasn't. Went back a few weeks later and I swear to God it wasn't there. Still one of the most bizarre things that's ever happened to me. Have you ever been to a county fair? Have you ever seen the trashy trailer park looking dudes with the bombshell girlfriends? I can't explain that. I see at least like 3 every time I go to one. On a boat, trolling for yellowtail amidst a school of dolphin about 4 miles off San Diego. Dolphin are too smart to take lures, aren't shy near small boats, and feed on the same bait schools as yellowtail and tuna. So it's strategic to follow them, as if cued. All 50-75 dolphins simultaneously stopped jumping and disappeared into the depths for about 30 seconds. Immediate, unnerving quiet. With great fanfare, they all suddenly burst out of the water in a near perfect row about a football field wide, and for a while, synchronized jumps ahead of our boat. Then they were gone, showing off for my dad and I. Normal behavior? Who knows? But it was awesome. Me and my dad both witnessed a white figure fly across our backyard in 1999. It didn't have arms or legs or a face. It was basically like a sheet and it flew across the yard at superhuman speed. When we saw it, we both looked at each other and tried to make sense of it. We still talk about it today. I don't believe in ghosts, but I can't explain what this was. Looked like a ghost if you believe in that. I came out of a store one day and turned the corner to see a crow trying to read a paperback novel on a park bench. He was perched on the bench, turning pages with his beak. When he noticed me staring, he hopped away like I caught him red-handed, and took flight a moment later. Ended up getting a tattoo of a crow reading a book because the incident left such an impression on me. No one really seems to believe me, but dude, corvids are ducking smart. I figure it was either imitating a person, or trying to harvest the pages for a nest. But either way, strange experience. Edit. Since a couple people asked and missed my reply, here's the tattoo. Years ago my dad's uncle passed away. Years before that, said uncle got my parents a fancy bottle of tequila from Mexico, and it's been on the front room display shelf with a bunch of other dust-covered sculptures and glass work for at least 12 years. It's out of reach and untouched. No one in my immediate family drinks. On the day of his passing, I'm in the front room reading and my dad's doing his taxes. We get a phone call with the bad news. My dad continues his taxes while letting me know his uncle passed in a few short words. Not 30 seconds later, in the tequila bottle his uncle got my parents starts playing music. This is odd to me because I thought it was just a bottle, so I ask, do we have a music box? My dad continues his taxes and tells me the bottle has a music box built in, and that was the only reason he kept it. I clarify, did you wind it recently? And he just keeps filing and says nope, and I was ready to leave it at that, but he says still all casually occupied. I imagine Uncle David wanted to say goodbye one last time. That is the only time it has made a noise as long as I've been alive. Of all days and times, I never knew what to make of it. It just made me uncomfortable. This is actually the weirdest thing, and call me crazy if you'd like. I went to a fair one time. For some reason my friends went with me, can't recall why. I noticed there were surprisingly few people there, and an abnormal amount of clowns. Didn't think anything of it. Got on some ride. Got one of those spiral cut potatoes. Took off after. Went home, went to sleep. Next morning my friend calls me and says where I was last night because my group of friends had a hangout and no one could get a hold of me, nor did I reply. Told them I went to the fair. He asked what fair. Then I couldn't remember where it was. I just said the fair in town. He just laughed and said something to the extent of yeah whatever. Still have no idea where the duck I went that night. When I was about 10 years old we lived at my grandparents' house for about a year. My grandpa uses hearing aids and usually has the TV volume really loud and his favorite things to watch are westerns. One night I woke up because he was watching TV too loud. I remember hearing glasses clanking, people chatting and faint music. So at the time I pictured it to be saloon in a western film. So I started heading downstairs to ask him to turn it down. I get downstairs, cross the family room and kitchen and headed down the short hallway that led to the TV room. Right when I entered the TV room the noises all fell silent. I was really tired and confused. I quickly went upstairs to my room and woke up my sister, but she just brushed it off and told me to let her sleep. When I think about it now it creeps me out, but at the time I was just tired and confused. Ghost Legos. I was a kid playing with Legos and noticed a few were in the bucket that didn't look like mine. The plastic was faded, older, definitely of a different generation. I would build spaceships all day, then when I went to bed and woke up there'd be holes in the spaceships where the old bricks would be. Being a 7-year-old my biggest concern was all the air getting out and my crew suffocating before they went to battle, so I'd quickly pull them apart and put new bricks in where the old ones were, but now that I think about it that always stuck with me as odd. Like other people I occasionally have very prophetic dreams. They always are about something tragic, but I'll describe my most vivid one. About 5 years ago I had a dream I was in a horrible 3-car accident with my then GF and my younger brother. The car was totaled. There was smoke. My GF and my brother went to the hospital and I died because I was pierced through the head with some sort of rod. Fast forward 2 years later, and my brother and I get a ride from girlfriend to go to a graduation party for a mutual friend. GF pulls out into an intersection. I immediately recognize everything from the dream and I flinch to the left. Everything goes black for me for a few seconds after that. But when I regain consciousness I look around and see the exact same scene as in my dream, except I lived. The car we were in was totaled. There was smoke from the other 2 cars involved and a rod that went through the windshield about 6 inches to the right of my head. It was the most intense moment of my life. Since then I have always kept track of my dreams and paid very close attention to them. My ex-boyfriend and I were in Idaho vacationing with his parents and grandparents on a lake lot that they rent every summer. We were sleeping in bed and I woke up freaking out because I saw an old lady wearing what appeared to be a blue nightgown. When I quickly went to put my glasses on, the figure disappeared. The next morning, keep in mind our first interaction with the family was at this point. His grandma asked, was anyone in my room last night who has a blue nightgown? Let's just say I didn't sleep in that room for the remainder of the trip. Edit. You're all fun. Thanks for all of your comments in helping me solve my mystery. D. Edit. Y'all are insane. Lol. Edit. I don't know why I added a parenthesis around ex-boyfriend, but I'm keeping it cause it gives my post flavor. My story isn't nearly as strange as some of the others, but it's one that has stuck with me my whole life. My friend and I used to love to go and hang out in one of the local cemeteries. I guess because we were just weird. This was an older cemetery and was no longer used, so it didn't have any new graves in it. One day while we were hanging out and just wandering around, we stumbled upon a new looking grave marker. It stuck out like crazy because all of the other markers were old and grey and crumbling. On some of them you could barely make out the names. This marker was much newer and the name and dates was clearly visible. It was also a rather neat red marble color, which was really different from all of the others. We didn't think much of it and just continued our trip through the cemetery. We sat down under this big tree in the middle and talked and laughed and did other stupid kid things. After an hour or so we decided it was time to leave. We crossed right by where the new grave marker had been and it was gone. We both kind of freaked out a little bit and searched the whole graveyard looking for the brand new marker, and it wasn't there. We checked for it several more times on different visits and never found it again. It was just weird and something neither of us could ever explain. I once had this dream. I woke up, did my normal stuff, then walked into the bathroom. I knew that something was off and that this was a dream, but I followed through. I look in the bathroom mirror, and the most terrifying thing is in my reflection. I scream and wake up. It is now dark outside. I go to my bathroom to wake up and splash some water on my face. Hesitantly look in the mirror. Same thing happens. I wake up again, refusing to look in my mirror. It felt like hours. I waited for the dream to end. I eventually went into the bathroom, looked in the mirror. Same terrifying reflection. I wake up again, walk past bathroom, go talk to mother. Everything in my house was dark. It was all very dark. Standing alone in kitchen. I'm terrified. None of this feels like a dream at all. I wake up, do my normal thing. Don't look in mirror. Go to school. Everything is normal. I go to bed. Wake up. I finally actually wake up. I dreamt an entire school day. I ask everyone about if any of it I remember happening actually happened. It didn't. I still am waiting to look in the mirror and wake up in my bed again just to repeat the hell that experience was. Not a thread to read when one takes a summer job on a horse ranch in the middle of nowhere, living in a cabin with no one for miles. Edit. I didn't realize I'd get this much attention, but common questions are as follows. 1. I'm in TN. 2. Unsure if they will hire at the end of summer. I've known them going on 20 years. I may permanently take a job here if it works out. 3. The best way to get a job like this is to start looking in local ads for the need for a barn hand to feed or muck stalls. Work your way up. 4. I love all your helpful and creepy comments. Sometimes helpfully creepy and often creepily helpful. Keep in mind that most small time and family owned farms ranches are really particular about who they let care for their animals. It takes a lot of trust. If I missed anyone's question, I'm sorry. It's been a long day and I gotta go clear a field now. When I was around 10, I had just gotten home after playing outside all day. I laid down next to our wall heater and take my windbreaker off. As I lay there, I was playing with the arm opening, just stretching it open and close. In the middle of doing it, I swear to God, the jacket just quickly slid towards the wall as if someone threw it. I immediately got up and slept in between my mom and dad. Still get goosebumps and still can't explain it. Some old lady at the mall asked if I was Drake from Drake and Josh. I said no and went to a Cracker Barrel across town later that night. She walked in and made awkward eye contact with me throughout my meal. One time, as I was driving home from work, I turned onto the street where I live on and noticed what seemed to be more street lights than I remember being there. I didn't think much of it at all at first, but something in me made me do a double take. I noticed that the 3 additional street lights are not street lights at all, but lights lined up perfectly in the sky in the distance. Literally, as soon as I noticed this, the lights in the sky beginning moving slowly and getting closer together. Eventually, they were close enough and formed a triangle. Mind you, at this point I have managed to park my car in my driveway and I'm standing there staring at them. My parents, who are fairly religious, tend not to believe in aliens, UFOs or anything of the sort. So I decided to run inside and get them so they can see this for themselves. We go back outside. The lights are still hovering, moving, slowing in a triangle. No sound is being made by them. They do this for a few more seconds and all of a sudden, one of them speeds off super quickly. When I say quick, I mean quick. The remaining 2 continue moving slowly in the sky for a few more seconds, then they literally just vanish. Poof. The lights were just gone. I'm not saying it was aliens, but yeah, those really were unidentified flying objects. To this day, we have no idea what they might possibly be. Sitting next to a friend at a camp-out canoe trip, I said I just feel like I need to move. Like I shouldn't be sitting here. He didn't move, so I laughed a little at myself and kept sitting there. A couple of minutes later my brain pinged me again and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna move. As soon as I stood up, a ball of fire from a flow arts performer on the other side of the camp landed exactly where I was sitting. We were both like, oh. I was walking down Commercial Avenue in Vancouver, which is like the alternative neighborhood there. This was like 15 years ago. Just walking down the street and it was pretty busy as usual. Out of the blue, I see a fully nude woman walking down the sidewalk toward me. I remember her so vividly because I was so surprised and also she was super hot. But the thing I remember the most is that no one else reacted. Nobody was turning their heads. I saw nobody like elbowing their friend and pointing. People were just calmly walking past her and she strolled calmly down the sidewalk. She walked right past me. Insert Patrick Stewart I saw everything gif. And I spun around as she did. Again. People seemed to just be casually getting out of her way but no reactions. Conversations continued as she passed people. Not a single other head turned. I dunno. Commercial Drive is known for hippies and alternative lifestyle types. But I can't explain the absolutely zero reaction from people. By contract. Years later, I visited Haight-Ashbury neighborhood in San Francisco and saw a guy walking down the street with just a tiny loincloth on and everybody was pointing, laughing, spinning their heads and having big, obvious reactions. So with a nude girl, I don't know how to explain it, but some part of me thinks I saw a ghost, a hot, sexy nude ghost. I had a dream when I was a teenager. We lived on the hillside overlooking the city. I was standing on our terrace just watching the world die. Water covered most of the city. What wasn't drowned was burning. Pillars of smoke covered the horizon. But oddly enough it was serene. You couldn't hear screaming or chos. Just tinders snapping like a campfire along the shore. It smelled like the sea too. Then I looked to my right, and there was my dad. To his right was my paternal grandmother. They both just smiled a sad smile which made me realize that I couldn't move. We were stuck standing in mud. I woke up after that. After breakfast, I didn't say anything until my dad and I were the only ones left at the table. I asked him if he had a dream last night. He described the exact same thing and he said he saw me too. Later on that day, my dad, who had checked in with my grandmother, said that she had the exact same dream. I grew up in a town that had a haunted railroad bridge. It was a common hangout place and one day one thing led to another and I ended up getting hit by a train. When I came to there was a girl who helped me up and called my friends over to call an ambulance and walk me to the street. Everyone there that day swears up and down that there were only 3 of us there, all guys, and no girl helped me up. To increase the weird factor, I still see this girl when I half wake up sleep paralysis states or I'm waiting to fall asleep after taking sleeping pills. I've learned to accept her as some sort of unexplained head trauma hallucination. She's cool though. We can have two-way conversed ends and sometimes she gives me good insights, which I assume are just things I've already figured out in my subconscious somewhere. I called my wife out on being extremely moody last night. She stopped, thought about it, and calmed down. I was at a bar with and I was talking to some dude I just met and a girl came over and started chatting us up. Mid-conversation out of nowhere she puts her hand on her head and says to the other guy, "You are from Brownsville." I don't remember the city name but it is a small town of like 500 people. The dude looked completely dumbfounded and replied that indeed he was from that city. She said that is weird because once every 2 or 3 years she has these crazy flashes of information about people she is talking to but don't know them personally. It was really weird and the guy was blown away and I was kind of in awe. I don't believe in real psychic abilities or anything but this tested me. Also it could have just been fake and she really knew he was from there but crazy experience anyway. I woke up with sleep paralysis with the understanding my uncle died. I get a phone call around 4 AM from my mom to tell me my uncle is on his deathbed and that I should swing by in the morning. pretty sure it was just his body on the bed, breathing on automatic, and that he left hours back. I heard the word impossible whispered into my ear one night when visiting my parents. I had just turned off lights to go to sleep, but wasn't tired or delirious. No TV or devices were on, and it was point blank range into my ear. No explanation, and hasn't happened since. When I was a child, I saw what looked like a golf ball of neon blue light pass in the night sky from my bedroom. It must have been the size of the moon. There was no real tail. I can still recall the trajectory each time I look out of the window. It is a crystal clear memory. I know I wasn't dreaming, because I called my parents into my room immediately. They still remember it to this day. The memory is so concrete in my mind. It is unlike any other childhood memory, and I was just 5 or so. I am certain there is some barely interesting explanation for my experience, but it is almost more interesting to me when left a mystery. I can smell if someone is sick. To me it seems like your body gives off a specific smell when it is fighting something. One day I was riding on my school bus on the way to school. At some point I felt sick to my stomach, not like I needed to puke, but more like you just found out something bad. So I closed my eyes and saw like a black background, and then my older cousin and the handgun I had never seen before, all in flashes. Then I heard 3 loud gunshots and I opened my eyes. Through all this I could feel disparity, anger, and fear. My father picked me up from school early that day, something we had already planned, and when I got in the car I asked him where did they find him. He was surprised I knew. My cousin committed suicide earlier that morning, and before he did he shot his radio before shooting himself. When I was about 12 I was playing outside on a really windy day, and a blue flying thing the size of a water bottle zoomed into my yard and got caught in some spider web in a bush. Its wings were clear, so it wasn't a bird, but the thing was huge and weird if it was a bug. I lived in the Mojave Desert, CA at the time, if anyone can think of something it could have been, and freaking the duck out tangled in the web and branches. It was thrashing so fast I couldn't get a good look at it, and I just kept staring at it in disbelief cause I couldn't stop thinking that's a ducking fairy. I go over and try to detach it from the web and it breaks free. At the speed of duck it was gone again. I was sitting in my college dorm room once when the temperature suddenly started dropping like crazy. I turned the heat up as high as it would go, but it just kept getting colder. I took out my winter clothes and started putting them on. This was like in late September, early October in New York, so it wasn't cold outside at all. I was just about to go ask for maintenance when my roommate got back from hockey practice and asked why there were so many police cars and ambulances outside. I had no idea. Later that night, we were informed a girl who lived in the dorms had died. Everyone who I've told about this says that I felt her death. I was in that same room for 3 years, and that was the only time I ever had problems with the temperature. When my wife was working late one night I heard breathing in the house, like a dog had somehow gotten in. I couldn't place where it was coming from, so I slowly went through the house looking everywhere. I checked our children's bedrooms and turned up nothing. But I was freaked out enough that I stayed up until my wife came home. Over the next couple of weeks we both experienced this breathing that we referred to as the breathing man. She heard it in the laundry room while I was sleeping. I heard it other times when I was on my own. But it never happened when we were awake in the house together. One night she's out working again and I'm about to go to sleep when I hear this breathing. So I sit up on the edge of the bed and say something to the effect of, "Look, I don't know what you want or why you're here, but whatever it is, get on with it. Just get on with it and get it over and done with and duck off. And whatever it is, do it to me. Leave the kids out of this and do whatever it is you want to me, and do it now. Hurry up and get the duck on with it, and if you're not going to do anything then just duck off entirely." And basically continued in that vein for 5, 10, 15 minutes. I'm not really sure. I waited and nothing happened. We never heard from the breathing man again after that night. A few years ago, shortly after adopting my dog, my then GF and I were getting ready to go out for food, or whatever it was. Right as we are getting ready to go out the door our dog starts freaking out. He's losing his mind, whining, jumping at us, biting at our arms, and trying to pull us to the living room. We take a few extra seconds, calm him down, say goodbye and head out. We had a train to catch. took all of 30-60 seconds. As we were approaching the bus stop, about 30 seconds away from the stop, BMW comes barreling around the corner and jumps the curb exactly where we would have been standing. Had we left when we originally wanted, we would have been standing there. We never would have seen it coming. To this day I'm convinced my dog knew, and he delayed us for that reason. He's never had an outburst like that since. When I was about 15, maybe 16 years old, I went to a haunted house for Halloween with some friends. This particular haunted house is very popular throughout the US for being full contact as well as being truly haunted. It was featured in some ghost hunting show also. Actors dressed as doctors walked around outside screwing with people and would also sometimes put a bag over their head and would drag them inside and put them in random spots. I was one of those lucky enough to be kidnapped. I was placed in a room, bag still over my head, and after waiting maybe a minute or two to be sure the doctor left, I took the bag off. Seeing a faint, what I thought was just my brain playing tricks on me, shadow of a little girl. I rubbed my eyes because again I thought I was just hallucinating. My eyes came back to and I could see the figure of the little girl a little more clearly. I freaked out and ran out of the room screaming. Altogether I give Asylum 49 a 9/10. I had a friend in high school who I stopped speaking to when she transferred in grade 10. 2 years later, I have a dream that I visited her new school and sat at the back of her math class with her. In the dream her teacher was tall, brunette with curly hair, and wearing glasses. The next day I get a message on Facebook from said friend, which is completely out of blue because we hadn't spoken in months. She asks me how I'm doing and I tell her about my dream. She freaks out and tells me that she sits at the back of her math class, and her teacher fit the description I gave her from my dream perfectly. On occasion, I have highly prophetic dreams. I can't influence the subject matter of these dreams and they're usually verifiable within a few weeks. They used to creep me out, but after all these years they are now just mildly amusing to me. When I was around 6 or 7, I was waiting in line for a game at a neighborhood party. This young boy about my age walked up to me, handed me a green Power Ranger action figure, and said I'm sorry, then walked off. I still to this day have no idea what that was about, and I still have the action figure. It's pretty cool. You push a button on his back and his head flips around so he's no longer wearing a mask. When I was 10 or 11 I had a horrible and very realistic dream that I was being chased by these little demon troll-like creatures around my house. At the end of my dream I ran into the bathroom, but before I shut the door one of the demons scratched from the bottom of my neck to my tailbone. I woke up in the hallway outside of the bathroom with 3 distinct claw marks across my back. I still don't know what it was or what really happened.